I was born in 1986 and spent the first 10 years of my life in Gulfport, Florida, before moving to St. Petersburg, where I grew up. My family was blue collar. My dad was a cable repair guy, and my mom worked in a call center. We never went hungry, but we didn't have a lot of extras. I have one older sister, and she has a mental disorder that went undiagnosed until her late 20s. Growing up, it wasn't even something anyone recognized, but as I got older, it became clear. My parents split when I was 10, and things got pretty crazy in middle and high school. I remember Y2K panic, the Columbine shooting, Princess Diana's death, and of course, 9/11. In middle school alone, we had 10 bomb threats before winter break. There was even a planned portable hostage situation, complete with masks and knives. On top of that, there were at least 2 gun-related deaths off campus, one involving Russian roulette. When I was in school, my dad made it clear that he couldn't afford to send me to college. So, if I wanted to go, I had to get scholarships. Thanks to the Bright Future Scholarship here in Florida, I got 75% of my undergrad covered, and the rest I put on credit. I graduated in 2009 with a political science degree, right in the middle of the Great Recession. It was a tough job market, so I reluctantly followed my family's path and ended up working at a cable call center. I started in the call center, but slowly, I worked my way up. My company invested in my growth, and I eventually became a process and change management expert. In 2012, I was able to become a first-time homebuyer, buying a house before the market fully recovered from the 2008 crash. And here I am, still living in that same house today. In 2016, my cable company got acquired, and that was my cue to leave. I eventually landed a project management role with a global consulting firm, and I now make a little over $100,000 a year. I used to think that was the number I needed to reach to say I made it. I would say things like, by the time I'm 35, I'm going to make $100K, and that's when all my problems will go away. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. That salary isn't what it used to be, but it does take care of my needs, and thanks to buying my house at the right time, I'm in a stable financial place. But here's the thing. Even with all that, I was still a grumpy, cynical person before 2020. I isolated myself, leaned into bad habits like nicotine and alcohol, and tied my identity too much to my job. Then COVID happened. Honestly, not much changed in my day-to-day life since I was already isolated. But something about the slower pace during the pandemic gave me a fresh perspective. I realized how neglected my house had become. It felt more like a place that I just stayed in, not a place that I actually lived in. My kitchen was disorganized, and my backyard was a mess. I barely knew my neighbors, even though I'd lived in the same house for 8 years. So, I decided to fix it up. Since I was spending so much time at home, why not make it a space I wanted to be in? I started with the backyard, and after giving it a facelift, I found myself spending more time outside. And honestly, I began to notice that Florida actually has seasons, just not as extreme as up north. I started noticing the birds in spring and the change in the atmosphere during fall. I also began cutting back on watching the news until, eventually, I just stopped watching it entirely. Instead, I dove into topics that truly interested me, like neuroscience and psychology. All of these little changes opened up some mental space that helped me start thinking differently. As I kept making these shifts, something just hit me. All the anger and frustration I had about things I couldn't control was just a waste of time. It was also terrible for my health, and here's the big revelation. I was the cause of most of my problems, but that also meant I was the solution. Once I realized that, it was like a weight was lifted. I understood that if I could change my mindset, I could completely change my life. And that's exactly what I've been doing over the past 3 years. I've turned my natural inclination toward negativity into a preference for positivity, and it has absolutely transformed my life. Since making these changes, my social circle has tripled. My connection with my family is deeper than ever. I even started something called the Community Happiness Project, a local initiative to promote positivity in my neighborhood. Things like happiness rocks, affirmation scrolls, and neighborhood notebooks where we write positive messages to each other. It's been incredibly rewarding. And now, as a millennial, I've seen the potential for a better future. The dawn of the internet, social justice movements, and even the changes we saw during COVID have shown that we have the power to create a better world. But here's the thing, it starts with us, the individual. If we all focus on improving our own lives, it can create a ripple effect that spreads to our families, communities, and even the world. Small actions do matter. I'm just one voice, but I believe if enough of us make positive changes in our lives, we'll start seeing massive changes in the world. So, if you're feeling stuck, frustrated, or like you're not where you want to be, just know this: you can change your life too. It's all about taking control of what you can, and slowly, step by step, making things better. The changes I've made in my life have completely turned things around, and I know they can work for others too. No matter where you start, if you commit to the process and focus on the positive, your story can change as well. And that's how I reset my story. Thank you so much for watching, and if you found any of this helpful or inspiring, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories like this one.